All right guys, project of the day, a pair of key hook frames with chalkboard. Stick around, we'll get right into it. Okay, so what started out a friendly little project turned into a husband versus wife competition. We each designed one of these frames. One is a rustic walnut version and the other one is a chalk painted version. It's got two colors of chalk paint with a little bit of distressing. So pop in the comment section which one you prefer. Vote for walnut or vote for chalk paint. We've got a few options as far as what lumber to use. Initially I was thinking to use some of this actual barn wood. It's rustic and it's got neat character, but of course there's some drawbacks to using barn wood. Once you cut into it and dimension it, you expose a lighter color, fresh edge of lumber, and that has to be dealt with a specialty barnwood stain. So that was enough to make me steer clear of that option. I think what we'll do is use, for the chalk paint version of this key hook frame, we're going to use maple, and for the other version, we're going to go ahead and use walnut. That'll look real nice once an oil goes on. So basically the process is we're going to head over to the table saw. We'll be at the Fusion F2 table saw today. We're going to rip these to width and then we'll get out the X-cut sled and cut everything to length. And then we'll put a combination blade on the table saw and go ahead and cut the groove to make the frames for both projects. To cut that groove in all of our pieces, we have the option of using a dado blade. But in this case, to get a perfectly centered groove, I think what we'll do is use a combination blade, make one pass in this direction, flip it around, make a second pass. That way we're guaranteed a centered groove. Setting your rip fence for that two-pass centered groove in all the work pieces, instead of trying to accurately measure the width of that groove, just keep a piece of the blackboard stock handy, and when this slides into the groove, you know you won't have any trouble when it comes time to assemble your frames. So next we're going to make a little stub tenon that will fit into the groove of the mating piece. And you could do that a couple ways. One would be to take out your combination blade and actually install a dado blade. But in this case, since we've got a flat top tooth here on our combination blade, we're just going to make use of that and make multiple passes. So let's review where we are in the process. All that work at the table saw was to make these grooves and stub tenons, And that's just exactly like the process of making a door for cabinetry. And then we'll add these blackboard inserts. They're a little under 1/4 inch in thickness. You can get these at any big box store. The neat thing is the back side is actually a dry erase board, so you can take your pick. You can have a dry erase surface or a traditional chalk surface. And if we sized our grooves correctly, we should be able to just drop those down into position. And we'll add the top here. We're going to go ahead and show the knot because Farmhouse Fabulous is all about showing the imperfections, right? So that's kind of the look we'll start to develop. We'll glue these up. One little note, we have pre-finished the inner edges of these so we don't have to cut in with either the chalk paint in this case or the Danish oil in this one. It'll just save us a little extra step, so we pre-finished those inside edges before we glue things together. While these frames are drying, we'll grab a little core box bit and head over to the router table. That'll help us make a little groove for a chalk keeper that we can attach to our frames. One thing I would say if you're making cuts with a core box bit, try to make it in multiple passes. That'll help to eliminate any burning as you make the cut. We'll start out with the chalk keeper board a little extra wide, and that'll just give us room to handle this cut. But basically the idea is we're going to drop it over the spinning core box bit and move it from one stop block to the other stop block on the router table. That'll give us a nice little groove for a piece of chalk. So for the finishing process on these two frames, we're going to show two different versions. This maple version will be chalk painted, and we'll go over the process with that now. The walnut version will actually receive a dark walnut Danish oil. So for this chalk paint version, the first step is to do a charcoal chalk paint, and then we'll follow that up with a dark red chalk paint, and then we'll do a little distressing to expose just enough of the gray undertones to give it an interesting effect. So that's the charcoal chalk paint, and if you look at this and think, oh, that's the color, that's what I want mine to look like as a finished product, this is a Rust-Oleum stock color. It's just called charcoal chalk paint. You can find it at the home improvement stores. So we're going to take it one step further with a dark red chalk paint on top. Sometimes it's fun to play around with the texture of the finish. Even after you've rolled on some paint, you can go back and apply some brush strokes to give it a little more old-fashioned or authentic look. The red paint, when it first goes on, looks a little pink, but once it dries, you get this deep antique red barnwood look. And if that's a color you're going for, it's a Behr product, and the color name is Forbidden Red. To attach the chalk keeper on the front, just clamp it in place, pre-drill some holes, and just go ahead and screw it in from the back. No glue required on that. Well, what about this little guy? What are we going to do to bring the walnut to life with this frame? I think we'll use a little Danish oil in a dark walnut color. That'll do a great job to bring out the color and character of the wood. And so we'll just go ahead and lay this out and start applying that with a clean rag. If you've never had a chance to work with a Danish oil and you've only used stains, like oil-based stains with a lot of pigment in it. I think using this Danish oil will be a pleasure for you. The one key difference I've found is that you don't get lap marks when you use Danish oil. You can kind of go at your own pace, and it doesn't seem to matter how fast you apply it, or you rarely need a second set of hands. So if you're a one-man shop or a one-lady shop, this is a finish that you should definitely put on your list to check out, the Danish oil. So this is exactly why we pre-finished these inside edges, so we wouldn't have to carefully wipe or cut in the Danish oil right next to the chalkboard surface. To avoid spontaneous combustion, anytime you're working with woodworking oils, make sure to dry your rags out in the open overnight. Only then are they safe to dispose of in the garbage can. Final detail would be to install some of these keyhole hangers to mount these frames on the wall. Alright guys, that's the step-by-step process on how to make these key hook frames. Remember to pop a vote in the comments section for me. Vote for either walnut version or the chalk paint version. We'll settle that husband versus wife debate. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.